Welcome back. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me at DirtleMTG on Twitter to keep up to date with the most recent videos and other posts. You can help support this content by hitting like and share, and by checking out the links in the description below. Alright, it's time to dirtle. Hello. Today we take to the skies of Dominaria to soar with the Skyknight Tura Kennerud, I think, which I probably mispronounced. Attempting to take these heights are Ramses Overdark, Angus Mackenzie, and Vorinclex the monstrous Raider. The high roll goes to me, and I draw him of Ende. I drop a Mystic Sanctuary and pass. Ramses plays a Swamp. Flooded Strand comes down for Angus, and it's cracked for Aspara's hideout. Vorinclex plays a Forest. Back to me, and I draw Acrobatic Maneuver. I play a tapped Hollowed Fountain, and the turn rolls over. An island enters the field for Ramses, and Arcane Signet is then cast. Angus plays a Tropical Island. Vorinclex has another Forest to the field, and they cast a Tura Tribe Elder. Harmonious Archon enters my hand for the turn, and I drop a Plains. Ramses plays an island, and casts Solemn Simulacrum. With the Enter trigger, Ramses retrieves another Swamp. Overgrown Farmland hits the field for the Angus player, and they pass. Vorinclex gets chill with a Snow Forest. Werewolf Pack Leader then prowls to the field. In combat, the Elders swing at me, and I take the snake to the face. My turn brings me the Progress Tyrant Jin Gataxes. I drop a Plains and cast Tolerant Sky Summoner. Ramses plays an island, and then cast Arcanist the Omnipotent. Arcane Denial is the response from the Angus player though, and Arcanist trips a rift into the yard. In combat, the Ramses player swings their Sad Robot into the Angus player in retaliation, dealing 2 damage. To Angus's turn, and Arcane Denial's delayed trigger stacks to resolve. The player then casts a commander in the first main. Dreamroot Cascade lands on the field after that. At the end of the turn, Secure Tribe Elder is sacked by the Vorinclex player to grab another Chill Forest. To the Monstrous Raider, and another Forest lands. Loyal Guardian is cast, and they move to combat. Werewolf Pack Leader is assigned aggression against the Angus player, and that player takes 3. My turn brings me Essence Flux. I cast Winds of Abandon without Overload, and gain a Flying Drake token from Tolerand. I exile the Loyal Guardian to keep the counters from getting out of hand, and pass keeping defenses up. The turn rolls to Ramses, and a Swamp hits the field. Thought Vessel is cast. 2 attacks, and the Simulacrum is swung into the Angus player, who takes 2. Savannah hits the field for Angus, and they pass with all the mana up. Vorinclex drops another Snow Forest, and they cast Soul of the Harvest. Birds of Paradise follows it down, and the player draws a card with the Soul's ability. The Werewolf is on the prowl in the attack step, and claws at the Ramses player's face for 3 damage. I draw an island on my turn, and drop it to the table. After trying to judge the potential threats from the table, I cast Cavalier of Dawn. When it enters, I destroy the Soul of the Harvest, limiting Vorinclex's card draw. They get a 3/3 colorless Golem token in the process. In combat, I swing the Drake at the Angus player, and they respond with the commander's activation to prevent all the combat damage. At the end step, the Ramses player casts Fact or Fiction, and they let a Swamp and Island go to the yard, and keep the rest once they've been separated. Ramses' turn begins with a Swamp. Rootwater Hunter is cast, and they pass. Angus's turn has an island into play. Mystic Remora hits the field for the player, and they pass. Vorinclex casts Generous Patron to start their turn, and when it comes into play, they give 1/1/1 counter each to the Rootwater Hunter and Solemn Simulacrum. They then draw 2 cards. They drop a Forest in Winter, and move to combat. The Werewolf and the Golem token both swing into the Angus player, with the Werewolf triggering for the first time. Angus is activated to prevent the damage, and the Vorinclex player draws a card with the Werewolf trigger. In the second main, Byway Courier is cast. I gain a Diluvian Primordial on my turn. I move straight to combat, and swing the Cavalier at the Angus player and the Drake token at the Vorinclex player. Moment's Peace is cast by Angus, and the Ramses player responds with Dispel. This triggers the Mystic Remora, so I jump the gun a bit and cast Essence Flux, targeting my Cavalier. Mystic triggers again, and I pay the 4 while I gain another Drake token. Essence Flux then resolves, blinking my Cavalier, and when it comes back, I destroy the Mystic Remora. The Angus player gains a 3/3 colorless Golem token. The Ramses player also pays for their Remora trigger, and finally Moment's Peace is countered. After all that's done, the Vorinclex player just takes 2 in combat. 2 Ramses and a Swamp lands on the table. Spinal Graft is cast, and it enchants my Cavalier. The Cavalier itself gains 3/3, but it also gains if it becomes the target of anything it's destroyed. Ramses Overdark then enters the battlefield. In combat, the Solemn Simulacrum is swung into the Angus player dealing 3, and Angus is cemented as the archenemy at this point. Angus's turn has a plains drop to the table. The player then casts Mana Crypt. Next to the stack is Farewell, and unfortunately everything not a land gets a wave goodbye. Sylvan Library follows it in the aftermath, and they pass. Two Vorinclex and another Frosty Tree hits the field. Their commander is cast, and it's followed by Scale the Heights. This gives their commander 1/1/1 counter that gets doubled, and the player gains 2 life and draws a card. Another Frozen Vegetable hits the field, and they move to combat. Vorinclex is swung hastily into the Angus player, dealing 8 commander damage. Back to me, and I draw an island. I play the land, and then cast my commander. Ramses' turn has a couple of coffers to the table. They activate its famous ability, and recast their commander. Angus's turn sees the first trigger of Sylvan Library, and they keep 1 extra card. Sol Ring is cast, and then Arcane Signet. Following these is the Dread Humility, and the game slows to a crawl. But I will never surrender! Vorinclex cast Abundance, which is pretty good considering the circumstances. Cultivate is next to the stack, and they get and play more Farce. Runic Armasaur then hits the field afterward, unfortunately abilityless. 2 combat, and Vorinclex runs at the Angus player, but said player casts Moment's Peace flashback from their graveyard, preventing the damage. My turn begins with Lear, Disciple of the Drowned, and a vanilla commander. Undeterred, I cast Harmonious Archon to prepare for later turns, and hope to draw removal for Humility. I go to attacks, and swing my 1/1 commander at the Angus player, dealing said 1 damage. The turn rolls to Ramses, and they drop an island. Hypnotic Siren is cast as an aura, and enchants Ramses Overdark. In combat, they swing into the Angus player, dealing 2, and dropping them to 14. Angus's turn has their library trigger, and they keep no extra cards at this time. Austere Command is cast, and all creatures are destroyed, though Hypnotic Siren does become a creature instead of an aura. I'm beginning to wonder at the game plan of the Angus player. That player then recasts their commander, and they pass. I take note of hand sizes here, with each opponent at 2 cards or less, and decide to be very patient. Vorinclex's turn has Citadel Druid to the field, I believe. Their commander comes down afterward, and they pass. I draw an island for the turn and play it. Unfortunately, my ETBs are useless, so I cast Ende. Another island to the field for the Ramses player. Stasis Cell is cast on Angus, followed by a Blessing of Leeches. To Angus's turn, and the library lets them turn a few extra pages from their own deck. They keep 1 card and lose 4 life. Sensei's Divining Top hits the field, and they activate it to look at the top 3. They then drop a Misty Rainforest, and crack it for a Temple Garden, losing 1 life. This shuffles the deck, and the top is activated again to see the new top 3 cards. They then activate the top to exchange it with the top card. They cast Peacemaker, and it takes me a while to realize none of its text actually matters because of Humility. 2 Vorinclex, and they cast Insist, drawing a card and protecting their next creature cast from a counter magic. Repopulate gets a cycle, and they draw a card from it. Return of the Wild Speaker is cast, and they draw another card. Leyline of Abundance is then cast. At the end of turn, I cast Acrobatic Maneuver on Ende just to draw a new card, and I get Valorous Stance. My turn gives me a Plains, and I play it. Still not yet much to be done here, so I just recast my commander. Blessings of Leeches triggers on the Ramses upkeep, and they lose 1 life. They recast their commander in the second main. Back to Angus, and the library does the thing. No extra cards are kept, and the player recasts their top. It is activated, and they appear at the top cards of the deck. It's then activated again to put the top on top, and they draw a card. Birds of Paradise is then cast. Vorinclex activates Leyline of Abundance on their turn, giving a 1/1 counter to creatures they control, which becomes the biggest creatures on the board. They move to combat and swing both of their creatures at the Angus player. Angus and the Birds of Paradise intercept, and Blessing of Leeches is activated by the Ramses player to regenerate Angus. The Birds and Druid go down, and the Angus regenerates, being tapped in the process. In the second main, Barkhide Troll enters the field. My turn brings a reality shift, and I find that somewhat amusing. I decide to swing and risk both of my creatures into the Angus player. They don't block and take 2, dropping to 5. Ramses' turn, and they lose a life to the Leeches. Fear of Death is cast, and it goes on to enchant the Peacekeeper. They go to combat, and swing both of their creatures at Angus. The player takes 2 and drops to 3. The library starts the turn for the Angus player. They recast the top in the first main, and proceed to look at the top 3. They pass. 2 Vorinclex, and they cast a Nevi Disc. That's fancy. Leyline is activated, and their creatures gain another counter each. They move to combat, and swing their creatures into Angus. Top is activated in response to grab the top card from Angus's deck, and they cast Teferi's Protection. Ramses comes to our rescue with a straight counterspell, and the Angus player quits the game. Unbound from the Humility, at the end of the Vorinclex player's turn, I cast Acrobatic Maneuver from my yard thanks to Ende. I gain a soldier token from Tura, and I draw a Sea of Clouds. My turn gives me Ghostly Flicker. I play the Sea of Clouds, and cast the Progress Tyrant. Going to combat, I swing my available attackers at the Vorinclex player, dealing 6. I pass with some mana up. Ramses' turn has an island to play, and they pass. To the Raider, and they cast Emrakul, the Promised End, targeting me and gaining control of my next turn. The Ramses player quits the game at this point. Arcane Signet is cast, but is countered by Jin Gataxies. The Vorinclex player moves to attacks, and swings their commander and the troll at me. I respond with Reality Shift targeting Vorinclex, but I get to copy it thanks to Jin, and also target the troll with the copy. My commander triggers as well, and I gain a soldier token. The Vorinclex player's creatures are exiled, and they manifest the top 2 cards of their library. My Not Quite turn rolls around, and I draw a Migratory Route. Not Quite Me casts Diluvian Primordial, grabbing a Repopulate from the other player's graveyard. It gets copied thanks to Jin, but this is redundant, and I gained another soldier. Not Me then casts Valorous Stance on Jin, and is destroyed while I gain another token. Mana spent, my new turn actually begins. I draw a Pilgrim's Eye for the turn. I use Mavinda to cast Essence Flux from my graveyard, and target my Primordial. After I gain a new token, and the Primordial comes back into play, I cast Return of the Wildspeaker from the other player's graveyard, and draw myself a nifty 5 cards. I then cast Soul Ring, and follow that up with Leer. I then flashback Winds of Abandon, and exile Emrakul while gaining a soldier token. Moving to combat, Mavinda, all able soldier tokens, and Tura swing into the Vorinclex player. 2 of the tokens are blocked, but I deal 7 damage and drop them to 27. I play an island in the second main and pass, trying to figure out how to make them use the Nevi Disc, with me coming out relatively okay. Their turn sees them cast All is Dust. I cast Ghostly Flicker in response, gaining a token, and blinking Mystic Sanctuary and the Primordial. With the Sanctuary, I return Valor's Stance to the top of my deck from the yard, and steal Cultivate to cast from Vorinclex's yard. I grab planes and an island, and put the planes onto the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, only colorless permanents are the things left that survive the dust. Into the red zone, and the Vorinclex player swings their manifested creatures at me, and I take 4. I draw Valor's Stance back to my hand for the turn, and drop an island. I do some quick counting, and then cast Harmonious Archon, gaining new tokens that are buffed to be 3/3s thanks to the Archon's ability. I then cast the Planeswalker Elspeth Terrell. Once the walker is in play, I activate the -2 to create 3 more tokens that also get the buff. I pass. Vorinclex starts their turn by activating the Nevi Disc, and I respond with Valorous Stance to save my Archon with Indestructible. The Vorinclex player surrenders. Good game to my opponents. By the 9 hells, that was a lot of wipes. I also wonder at the Angus's player's endgame. I don't know if they had one or not. Games like these tend to grind on, but something important to remember is how the situation might or could be turned to your advantage. Peacekeeper not being able to stop our attacks eventually, slowly, brought the game back up to speed. Thank you for tuning in to another Casual Commander game here on Dirtle Magic. See you next time.